This is the lowest tier member of this year's Motorola Edge series, the Moto Edge 50 Fusion. Unlike the others, this one is a standard mid-ranger, but still brings quite a few nice features. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's see what the Edge 50 Fusion is all about in our full review. The Edge 50 Fusion is a different beast than its premium siblings, and it also comes at less than half the price. Compared to the Edge 50 Pro, the Fusion has a lower tier chipset, slower charging, and no telephoto camera. It's positioned sort of like last year's Edge 40 Neo. But still, there are plenty of attractive features here, including a high refresh rate display, nice speakers, and a clean software experience. In this marshmallow colorway, the back of the phone is made of vegan leather, which is soft, and its texture adds some extra grip. The phone is curvy. The back rises seamlessly into the bump that houses the cameras. And both the back and the front curve at the edge into a thin plastic frame. Overall, the Edge 50 Fusion feels light and quite comfy in hand. And like the higher tier models, there's proper IP68 rated ingress protection against dust and water too. The display on the front is a 6.7-inch OLED with a 1080p resolution and a high 144Hz refresh rate. You don't get the higher res 1220p resolution here like on the more expensive Moto Edge models, but the Fusion's panel is still plenty sharp at around 393 ppi. There is no support for HDR video playback though. The 144Hz refresh rate is something stand out, especially for a mid-ranger, and it makes your swiping and scrolling extra smooth. To unlock it, you'll need to select the specific mode in settings. Otherwise, the default auto mode will max out at 120Hz. Either way, it's able to dial down to 60Hz when idling to save energy. It's worth noting that there is a variant of the Edge 50 Fusion sold in Latin America that comes with a 120Hz refresh rate instead of 144. As far as brightness goes, the Edge 50 Fusion does an excellent job. We reached around 520 nits maximum with a manual slider, and this can boost to over 1300 nits in auto mode. Great if you need to use the phone on a sunny day. For audio, there's a stereo speaker setup with Dolby Atmos support. The speaker's loudness is very good, and the sound quality is rich, with decent bass and balanced mids and highs.
I'm wide awake, but you're a nightmare.
For biometrics, there's an under-display fingerprint reader, and it's snappy and accurate. And the Edge 50 Fusion comes with 128, 256, or 512 gigs of storage on board, but that isn't expandable through microSD. Like the rest of the Moto Edge series, the Fusion gets Moto's new Hello UI interface on top of Android 14. It's similar to stock Android, but with some custom Moto features, which you can find organized within the Moto app. This Moto app hub has got a makeover compared to the hub we've seen on previous Moto phones. All the same functionality of the old Moto UI is still there though. Plus, now there's extra personalization available with the AI-generated wallpaper option called Style Sync. You can connect the Edge 50 Fusion to a PC or external monitor via the new Smart Connect app. It replaces the old Ready For app and merges all of the connectivity options under one roof. And just like the other Edge 50 models, Moto promises 3 years of OS upgrades and 4 years of security patches for the Fusion. For a chipset, the Edge 50 Fusion packs a Snapdragon 7S Gen 2. The naming scheme of these Qualcomm chips is tricky, but this is mid-range level silicon through and through. It's the same chipset that powers the Xiaomi Redmi Note 13 Pro, for example. In benchmarks, the Edge 50 Fusion does a solid job, about middle of the pack for a mid-ranger in this price range. There's enough power here for a smooth user experience, and even some light gaming. And when it comes to thermal management, the Edge 50 Fusion does a good job. It went through our prolonged stress tests without much thermal throttling. The Edge 50 Fusion has a large 5000 mAh battery capacity, and the battery life here is respectable. It earned an active use score of 12 hours and 40 minutes in our battery life tests, and in the individual tests, it was a solid showing. You don't get the super fast charging here that you would on the higher end Edge models. The Fusion's is rated at 68 watts, and the charger comes in the box. With this adapter, we were able to charge the phone from 0 to 60% in half an hour, and a full charge took just over an hour. There is no support for wireless charging here, like you would get on the Pro or the Ultra. Now we have the cameras. The Edge 50 Fusion has a 50 megapixel main camera and a 13 megapixel ultrawide cam, which has autofocus. Like I mentioned, there's no telephoto camera here, unlike the other Edge 50 models. There is something neat worth mentioning. The main cam has a Lydia sensor with dual pixel autofocus and OIS. Motorola claims that this is the most advanced sensor in the mid-range class. The main camera's photos come out at 12.5 megapixels due to pixel binning. They're solid, with plenty of detail in the frame, and everything looks nice and sharp. There's practically no noise, and contrast is good too. Even though the Edge 50 Fusion lacks a dedicated telephoto camera, it's still able to pull off some nice 2x digital zoom. In low light, the main camera captures very competent photos. There's plenty of detail, colors look nice, and light sources are handled decently well. Noise is also kept to a minimum. 4K videos from the main camera have plenty of detail, no noise, and a decently wide dynamic range. Colors are, once again, quite saturated. There is no over-sharpening or super high contrast like there is on the Edge 50 Pro and Ultra. Electronic stabilization does a good job to smooth out bumps and shakes, but unfortunately introduces quite a bit of focus hunting too. Low light 4K videos from the main cam have pretty good detail, but there's quite a bit of noise in the frame, and the dynamic range leaves more to be desired. Now the ultra-wide cam is quite decent, producing detailed and sharp photos. However, that sharpening can look artificial. Colors have some pop to them, but they're not exactly matched with the main camera. Contrast is good, and the dynamic range is decent, but could be better. Thanks to its autofocus, the ultra-wide camera can take close-ups. These turn out reasonably well. Occasionally, the camera misses the focus though. In low light, the ultra-wide struggles a bit more than the main cam. There is plenty of detail, even in shadows, but there is also a lot of noise. The ultra-wide camera captures nice videos with no traces of over-sharpening. Interestingly, if you turn off the electronic stabilization, along with the wider field of view, you also get choppy footage at 22 frames per second. Selfies from the 32 megapixel front-facing cam come out at 8 megapixels, and they're pretty good. There's decent looking detail and skin textures, and the skin tones are good as well, though a bit too saturated. So that's the Moto Edge 50 Fusion. For the mid-range class, it stands out in a lot of ways. The nice looking leather design and IP68 ingress protection, a bright 144Hz display, great speakers, and solid cameras for the class. There are a few nitpicks here and there, and while most of the phone's features are above average, the chipset here is pretty middle of the road. But still, for a mid-ranger, the Edge 50 Fusion is a unique and solid choice. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're looking for alternatives, you can check out our reviews of the Samsung Galaxy A55 and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 13 Pro. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.